The existence of Earth once again faced the threat of extinction as gods from other universes sought to fill the void left by the disappearance of the absolute beings. Seung Jin Woo was forced to send Beru, the Shadow Ant King, back to Earth to awaken his son's power and start the journey he once experienced. SuHo must conquer the Dungeon of Darkness and establish his place in the world of hunters as he confronts a new evil force scheming to devour the entire world. SuHo's journey is not only a battle against evil, but also a self-discovery to become the hero who protects what he loves. Omnipotent beings from ancient times, the absolute existences that created countless universes called absolute beings are passionate about and seek endless creativity, thus giving rise to countless materials, souls, and laws. However, within this endless loop, absolute beings feel an unresolvable boredom, so they come up with a playful trick, which is to observe the war of creatures. For absolute beings, the destruction of creatures creates much fascination. Countless creatures have to struggle, die, and be reborn in an endless war, but it is necessary to dispel the boredom of absolute beings. In the meantime, an event occurred where absolute beings were killed by the creatures they created while observing the endless war. Other absolute beings from different dimensions gathered to observe a world without masters. The brutal death of their kind, especially by the creatures they created, did not concern them. They only had one common thought: if power no longer has a master, then whoever dominates first will prevail. Transferred to a high school in South Korea, in a classroom, a boy is happily chatting with his classmates. He proudly points to his face and says, "I have been accepted into Korea University of Arts." His two friends are amazed and exclaim, "Can't believe it, SuHo, someone as clumsy as you got into the art university, while I have to repeat a year." SuHo excitedly laughs out loud. "Haha, finally escaped from this hell." Suddenly, another guy walks in and sarcastically says, "Congratulations, some SuHo. You got into art university. I didn't know you had talent for drawing." SuHo coldly responds, "Kim Seung-chil, it's you again." The guy, called the wrong name, gets embarrassed and corrects, "I'm Lee On-chil, not Kim Seung-chil." SuHo smirks, "Oh, got it." Lee On-chil said, "Thanks to you, my plan to intimidate the high school has completely failed." SuHo replied, "That's right. Thanks to me, you can graduate safely." At this moment, the girls above started whispering. On-chil is starting again, almost graduating, but still acting like a child. Really, SuHo's parents disappeared. He's been trying to live happily. Why make it difficult for him like that? Listening to these whispers, SuHo's face became a bit solemn. He seemed a little sad. On-chil angrily threw a fist forward and shouted, "Some SuHo." SuHo quickly jumped up, then kneed On-chil straight in the face, while angrily saying, "Be quiet until graduation." If it had been any other time, this guy would have fallen down immediately, but this time SuHo was extremely surprised because even though he had hit him straight in the face, the guy did not fall. His nose was slightly bruised and bleeding a little. He was both confused and excitedly smiling. Then he threw a fist again. Strangely, this time there was a mysterious magical power surrounding his punch. He triumphantly shouted, "What are you doing, scratching an itch for me? Why don't I feel any pain at all?" As soon as he finished speaking, he threw an extremely powerful punch towards SuHo, but SuHo quickly dodged. The expression on his face was one of utter panic. The next moment, both SuHo and the other students were in shock. Lion John's punch had gone through a nearby iron locker, creating a large hole. Moreover, his hand was completely unscathed. Even he didn't understand why his punch was so powerful today. SuHo, now frozen and dazed, looked up and said, "I guess my life is over now." In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed, and some SuHo was now a second-year university student. On a day as ordinary as any other, SuHo, carrying his bag and heading to his drawing class, looked somewhat bored. As he walked, he suddenly heard an announcement ahead. In front of him was a dungeon, with hunters and teachers working to seal off the area. A teacher holding a speaker said loudly, "All classrooms in the main building have been transferred to the auxiliary building. Please move to the auxiliary building. Currently, the hunters are approaching the gate to eliminate monsters, so please do not enter." At this time, a manager inside asked, "How long have the hunters been in?" Another employee replied, "It's been over 8 hours, sir. It looks like the gate is rated D, so the hunters will be out soon." Many curious people came down to see. The announcement kept ringing. Those who are not hunters should stay away. It's dangerous. While everyone was curious about the situation, some SuHo walked slowly, his face pensive. It's the gates of the underworld again. 3 years ago, when the gates appeared all over the world, everything changed dramatically. The gates are the entrance connecting the human world to the underworld. After a certain period of time, the demons in the underworld will emerge and threaten humans. But humans have also changed to cope with that. Those who can use magic are called extraordinary abilities have begun to appear in a rapidly changing world. The seemingly endless chaos quickly ended when Wu Jin Chul, and extraordinary abilities establish the Hunters Association and gather extraordinary abilities to establish the profession of hunters. Now, people are divided into extraordinary abilities as hunters, and those who are not awakened are ordinary people. SuHo entered the classroom and began sketching instinctively with a pencil. However, his mind continued to ponder. If someone has to work like an ant to earn rewards, there are those who receive rewards without doing anything. In this structure, ants recognize their limits. No matter how hard they try, those who are not awakened cannot even compare to someone with extraordinary abilities of rank E. Therefore, Lim Chiel, who was fortunate enough to awaken his abilities, now bullies me, while I am just an ordinary person, unable to resist. This is both true and incredibly bitter. If hunters did not block the dungeon gates, the world would be destroyed. In other words, those who are not awakened cannot survive without those who are, but those who are awakened can survive without those who are not. So, we owe our thanks to the hunters. Thanks to them, people like me, who are not awakened, can live peacefully. However, at the same time, there is also a worry. I am gradually getting used to not having what I cannot obtain. With my parents missing, my right to live depends on others. What I once thought I could achieve now feels lost, and that empty space is filled with powerlessness. My mother often said that I am like my father. In this powerless situation, what could my father do? The more SuHo tried to remember his parents, the darker the images in his mind became. His thoughts were more tangled than ever. At that moment, the voice of the teaching assistant snapped him back to reality. SuHo. SuHo turned and greeted, "Hello, sir." The teaching assistant complimented, "You're quite focused today. What are you drawing that's making you so happy?" SuHo gave a faint smile and replied, "Oh, I'm just doodling." The teacher examined SuHo's drawing and commented, "Is this an ant? Even though you're drawing ants, you're quite creative." No, maybe it's more accurate to call this an ant person. At this moment, SuHo carefully looked back at the painting and wondered, why did I suddenly draw this? The painting that SuHo had drawn was the Shadow Ant King, also known as Beru, one of the generals of the Dark Army under his father's command, Seung Jin Woo. However, it was unclear why his memories had been forgotten. At the same time, there was a commotion in the dungeon. The hunters began to emerge from the dungeon, and from their appearance, it seemed like they were in good condition. The people around cheered. The hunters were out. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. The expedition was successful. A security guard smiled and said, "You did well, Hunter Kim Jong-soo." Kim Jong-soo nodded slightly, speaking solemnly. The dungeon extermination was successful, but there is information that needs to be reported to the Hunters Association. We encountered a new demon, a humanoid demon that spews blue fire from its eyes and mouth, attacks with claws and teeth, with a low killing ability. I was scratched lightly, but it's okay. It doesn't seem to be a dangerous demon. The other employee was also surprised. I have never encountered this demon after the gate appeared. Luckily, it is not dangerous. So Hunter Kim Jong-soo, please write a brief report on this extermination mission. The wound on the arm of Hunter Kim Jong-soo that was normal suddenly flared up with a light blue flame. Kim Jong-soo himself suddenly felt unsettled in his body. Then his condition gradually became strange. His head began to bow. His hands released the sword. Seeing Kim Jong-soo's strange state, the other employee asked hesitantly, "Hunter Kim Jong-soo, are you okay?" At this point, a light blue flame began to flicker in Kim Jong-soo's eyes. Then he suddenly rushed forward to bite the nearby employee. His other teammates turned in horror with frightened faces. The two immediately realized that the light blue flame burning from that person's eyes was very familiar. Along with this method of attack, a female hunter exclaimed in horror, "That blue flame belongs to the demon in the dungeon." Before she could finish her sentence, she was bitten by Kim Jong-soo with a fierce bite. Everyone around was terrified and ran away in chaos. Those bitten by Kim Jong-soo immediately turned into zombie-like creatures. Completely losing their rationality, they crazily rushed to attack humans. SuHo and everyone in the classroom heard cries of panic, so they were curious and ran to the window to see. The next moment, SuHo turned pale with fear because the scene they saw was extremely terrifying. Many people had been infected by those green-eyed zombies and turned into monsters. Even two male zombies were tenderly exchanging green flames. Everyone in the classroom looked scared. What's happening? Are they attacking each other? The green light from their eyes is just like monsters. Is the apocalypse happening? What should we do? Run quickly. Some students quickly turned and said, "No, waiting here for the hunter might be better. Teacher's assistant Lim, you are the extraordinary abilities. You should go quickly." The assistant teacher waved his hand. "No, I'm just Class E." Suddenly, SuHo saw a zombie appear on the roof of the opposite building, looking like a hunter infected with blue fire and transformed into a demon. He quickly sat down, his hands tightly gripping the wall for leverage. The next moment, he kicked hard and rushed straight towards the classroom where SuHo was studying. SuHo panicked and shouted, "Run, everyone, run quickly." Before he could finish his sentence, the zombie rushed in. SuHo managed to dodge, but unfortunately his classmate was stabbed straight in the face. The vicious zombie growled with blue fire burning from its eyes and mouth, its flesh starting to decay and burn. Everyone panicked and shouted inaudibly, their faces pale. SuHo immediately ran away. The zombie had recruited another sophomore student into its zombie army. A girl was seriously injured in the leg and couldn't move. She tried to ask for help. SuHo hesitated for a second, but then he closed his eyes tightly and ran straight to the door. As he ran, he replied, "I will go call the hunting team." After leaving the girl behind and running away, SuHo's conscience began to gnaw at him. Damn, why didn't I even say that? I just left her in her death. But I'm not awake, damn it. Blaming the useless circumstances won't change anything. Figure something out, some SuHo. If it was Dad, what would he do now? SuHo tries to recall memories of his father, the image of Seung Jin Woo gradually appearing in his mind. Jinwoo glances back at SuHo. In the classroom at this moment, the girl is trying to crawl away from the zombie, but the zombie is now starting to pay attention to her. The girl begins to feel desperate, tears streaming down her face, trembling in fear. The zombie growls loudly, then rushes straight towards the girl, preparing to give her a love bite. The helpless girl raised her hand and let out a loud scream. Ah! Just as the bloody fangs were about to touch the girl, suddenly a fire extinguisher appeared and shot straight into the mouth of the person, none other than some SuHo. He bravely returned to save the girl. In SuHo's eyes, there was a strong belief. If it were my father, he would definitely do the same. At that moment, suddenly before SuHo's eyes, it seemed like an illusion was starting to form. A fuzzy notification screen then gradually appeared, the notification of a secret mission. You have met the requirements to complete the secret quest, Courage of the Weak. Just return the result, no explanation needed, nothing else. Some time ago, SuHo often dreamed a strange dream. In the dream, everything seemed like a game. To defeat increasingly powerful monsters on each level, SuHo leveled up and fought repeatedly. Along with that, he received items and weapons and countered a peculiar system that always assigned him tasks. As the monsters grew stronger, SuHo needed to continuously become stronger as well. He fought against many powerful enemies, and after numerous failures, he finally managed to defeat them. After enduring countless challenges and battling countless types of monsters, dying and coming back to life many times, SuHo eventually reached the highest level. The final boss he had to face was incredibly powerful. Although he was SuHo's enemy, SuHo couldn't help but feel a sense of envy and even admiration for his strength. SuHo fought and fought, but could not defeat the final boss. In the end, SuHo was astonished to discover that the true identity of the final boss was his own father. Seung Jin Woo gently patted SuHo's head and asked, "Did you enjoy the game?" At that time, SuHo was extremely surprised. Now, after thinking about it many times, SuHo thought that it was probably just a dream reflecting his father's image. In his memory, SuHo felt that his father was a very strong and reliable person. How could he become so strong? Returning to when SuHo was running away from the zombie after thinking about his father, he immediately regained his courage. SuHo quickly grabbed a fire extinguisher and ran straight towards the zombie. At the moment the zombie was about to bite the girl, SuHo swiftly hit its head, knocking it down behind and in time to save the girl. He believed that if it were his father, he would do the same in this unbelievable situation. But after repelling the zombie, SuHo was unsure of what to do next. Now the power gap was too great. Basically, there was no way of escape anymore. Moreover, the attack of an unawakened person without mana would not have any effect on the demon beast. SuHo regretted a bit for rushing in without thinking. Suddenly, the space around SuHo seemed to freeze. The zombie stopped moving, an unusually quiet space. The tears rolling down the girl's face also stopped. Even the zombie's flame showed no more movement. SuHo panicked. "What's this? Time has stopped, hasn't it?" At that moment, a notification appeared in front of SuHo. "Secret mission notice, you have fulfilled the condition Courage of the Weak. Now you are qualified to become a player. Do you accept?" SuHo suddenly realized this notification is very familiar. It's like what you experienced in your dream before. SuHo suddenly thought, if I can fight like in that dream, why wouldn't I accept becoming a player in such a dangerous situation like this? SuHo pondered for a few seconds, feeling the last moments of a normal person. Then he accepted to become a player. As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling light shone straight out of the window in the classroom. System notice. Congratulations on becoming a player. Mission reward for the secret mission, Courage of the Weak. Great Spellcaster Candieru's blessing. Great Spellcaster Candieruz has bestowed upon you a special incantation. Great Spellcaster Candieru's blessing ensures that you will always be healthy throughout your life. The effect is permanent, curing all poisons and status effects and enhancing regeneration. This system will aid in player development. Note that this is not a dream. You only have one life, so be careful. SuHo's status window appeared. Currently at level 1, all basic stats are 10, health is 100. He only has one passive skill, Ruler's Authority at level 1. SuHo is extremely happy and excited. This game's status window is just like I imagined. The system initiates the first tutorial mission, defeat Miss Burn and level up. After announcing the mission, the time around some SuHo started to return to normal. The zombies began to tremble and other classmates who were bitten by zombies also began to turn into zombies. SuHo quickly shouted to the girl behind him, "Run fast!" The girl immediately obeyed and ran away with all her might. In SuHo's eyes, he saw 3 zombies appearing with name tags on their heads. The first one was Miss Burn Awakened D rank. The 2 behind were Miss Burn Unawakened. SuHo's opponents now were 2 unawakened people and a hunter undergoing transformation into monsters. The 2 unawakened Miss Burn immediately rushed to attack SuHo. SuHo suddenly thought, if I have really awakened then, thump. SuHo grabbed a fire extinguisher and swung it straight into the face of the girl Miss Burn. Then SuHo tightly clenched his fist and rushed forward. Sorry about this. SuHo punched the monster's jaw, directly knocking the Miss Burn down onto the ceiling. SuHo was extremely surprised by his newly awakened power. He looked at his fist and wondered, really? 1 punch and they're dead? Is this a bit too much? At this moment, the remaining unawakened Miss Burn D rank is also approaching. The system has also rewarded SuHo for completing the task. SuHo is quite confident in his own strength. Coupled with the urgent situation, he has not been able to open the gift. He immediately punches straight into the face of the Mist Burn monster. However, the punch did not cause any pain to the Mist Burn. SuHo is surprised. It resisted that punch. The Mist Burn monster rushes towards SuHo to scratch him. SuHo dodges in time, but its speed and movements are too fast. SuHo only manages to dodge the first attack, but the second one scratches him. SuHo kicks it hard to push it away and creates some distance. Blood starts flowing from the wound incessantly. SuHo is extremely terrified. Damn, if it scratches me, I will turn into a monster, just awakened, and already about to turn into a monster. Suddenly, the system notified. Detected a negative state for your spirit. The effect of longevity has resolved that negative state. The surface of SuHo's wound now shows a greenish light, starting to heal the wound and stop the bleeding. SuHo becomes more surprised. Longevity. Now thinking back, he remembers seeing that effect in the status window at first. SuHo absentmindedly didn't notice the Miss Burn rushing to attack. It grabbed him and pinned him to the ground. Just as it was about to bite him, he managed to raise his hands to defend himself. If he was weaker than a D rank, would become a demon beast, then that means he is an E rank. But wait, he had just become the Awakener, worrying about his rank already. SuHo didn't know how to escape this difficult situation. Miss Burn kept its mouth open ready to bite him, drooling and spitting everywhere. SuHo suddenly remembered and immediately opened the rewards he had received. He saw he had 2 rewards. Reward 1, plus 5 attribute points. Reward 2, plus 3 strength points. SuHo's strength had increased from 11 to 14. SuHo gritted his teeth and shouted loudly, then used all his strength to push the Mist Burn off him. He kicked it away with his foot. The Mist Burn did not fall. It landed in a superhero pose. But before it could react, SuHo charged in and delivered a powerful punch straight to its face. Of course, that was still not enough. The Mist Burn swung its arms, continuously scratching and tearing at SuHo. Confident in his poison resistance and recovery abilities, SuHo was no longer afraid of taking hits as he had been before. SuHo noticed, even after increasing by 3 points, I still can't seem to defeat it. He decided to allocate all remaining points to strength. At this point, his strength had reached 19 points. SuHo clenched his fist and threw a powerful punch straight into the Miss Burn's mouth. Then he bent down, dodged its attack, and unleashed a series of punches to its body. The armor began to shatter under SuHo's blows. SuHo thought to himself, an Awakener can level up. I've never heard of that before, because the level is determined upon awakening, and no Awakener has ever become stronger than the level of the one above. And I don't know who decides the levels of Awakeners, but if I have the power to break free from that Dan ranking system then. SuHo roared as he clenched his fists. The wall between the classrooms began to crack with each of his punches in no time. He could no longer bear it, was broken. SuHo punched the D-rank Miss Burn through the wall. SuHo was in a frenzy, his eyes gleaming with madness. He fiercely punched the D-rank Miss Burn in the face, sending it flying into the next room. Standing at the hole in the wall, SuHo breathed heavily, exhausted, his fist also dripping blood, but it was the blood of the Miss Burn. System notification. You have defeated the awakened D-rank Miss Burn. You have leveled up. SuHo sighed as he slumped down. I won. SuHo looked at his hand. I never thought I would one day have such power. He tightened his grip and said to himself, so I am also an Awakener now. Just then, a scream from nearby echoed towards them. SuHo immediately stood up. I can do this, considering that I have already awakened. I can save those people and resolve this crisis. Outside the courtyard, Miss Burn Kim Jong-soo was running towards them with a sword in hand, then he jumped up high. SuHo looked down and saw many Miss Burns, feeling extremely worried the situation outside is really bad. At that moment, Miss Burns Jong-soo jumped towards him, his hands holding a heavy sword behind his back, preparing to unleash a powerful blow straight towards SuHo's head. SuHo saw the words above his head. He is an awakened C-rank Miss Burn, and up. His strike was like an explosion. Smoke filled the air, the brick wall shattered into pieces raining down below. The emergency announcement is currently being broadcast on the speaker. The prison gate has been opened at Korea University of Arts. We request all residents in the area to evacuate immediately. The military has also arrived, but they are just regular people with weapons, only able to stand here and form a blockade to stop the monsters. A commander, extremely frustrated, says, "Damn it, how many casualties, and all we can do is stand and watch. When will the Gil hunters arrive?" The soldier next to him replies, "It seems the B-rank hunters will take some time to arrive." B-rank? They did say this is a B-rank gate. In fact, the guild is considering the possibility of the hunters being infected. He points to a picture of the C-rank hunter Kim Jong-soo and says, maybe that C-rank hunter has already been infected. On SuHo's side, he has luckily avoided the sword strike earlier. The Mistburn creature begins to slowly approach him. SuHo is still extremely shocked at the moment. What the hell? It jumped down from a lower floor. It's a rank C. It even has a weapon. Definitely different from the fog monsters before, but I just leveled up. I wonder if there's a chance. SuHo immediately stood up to get into a fighting stance, slashed a sword across, narrowly dodging a hit. Indeed, a rank C hunter. That weak slash just broke the entire wall within a 4 meters range. SuHo quickly leaned against the wall, heart beating faster, a horrified expression on his face. This creature is too strong. The Mistburn creature grinned, holding the heavy sword with one hand preparing to strike again. SuHo quickly kicked back to divert the attack and then ran away. The kickback broke the sword into two. The extinguishing powder burst out, whitening the entire room. SuHo ran straight out with his head down. I can't confront this monster. Why are awakeners graded? When will the hunters arrive? The Mistburn creature had found SuHo by now, but suddenly turned its head to look elsewhere. SuHo looked back in surprise, only to see that the Mistburn had discovered 3 female students standing on the rooftop of a nearby building. They had all hidden up there, waiting for the hunters to come rescue them. The Mistburn rushed forward, swinging its sword at them, and managed to send the 3 girls down to meet the Grim Reaper. SuHo felt like he was dying inside as he witnessed the scene. The sight of the Mistburn made SuHo even angrier, not wanting anyone else to die because of it. Summoning all his courage, SuHo gritted his teeth and charged at the Mistburn. He kicked it in the back, trying to distract it and buy time for the other hunters to arrive. But his kick didn't even faze the Mistburn, which immediately swung its heavy sword back at him. SuHo jumped back just in time to dodge the attack. Seeing the gash on the concrete floor, SuHo knew that just one hit could send him to meet the Grim Reaper. But when he saw the bodies of the innocent girls nearby, SuHo told himself, I can't let it get away with this anymore. SuHo rushed towards it head-on. He kept punching the monster's belly and ribs incessantly, but it didn't care and just focused on swinging its sword continuously. Instinctively, SuHo dodged all those strikes, then continued to use his fists to attack it, dodging a blow for every blow. SuHo kept dodging and hitting. The monster turned its face towards SuHo. He immediately kneed it straight in the face. However, it managed to grab his right leg, holding a sword with its right hand and striking SuHo in the middle. SuHo was seriously injured, bleeding profusely, and the monster kicked him against the wall. SuHo was in pain, vomiting blood continuously, and the monster started to approach him. Losing too much blood, SuHo became dizzy and unable to move, now of only one last breath. SuHo held the wound and whispered lightly, Luckily, it seems the system doesn't want me to go down. In a space near the battle, there was some slight movement, a monster getting closer with a sly smile, cracks appearing in the space. SuHo used his last ounce of strength to stand up. The cracks on his body continued to spread. The monster, now wielding a sword, roared and charged to attack. SuHo was still dizzy, lightheaded, with a headache and off balance. His vision darkened and he collapsed. Just as the monster was about to deliver the finishing blow, the cracks couldn't hold any longer, and bang! From within the cracks emerged a shadowy figure with a deathly presence. The shape of this shadowy figure was incredibly familiar. It was none other than the Shadow Ant King, Beru. It immediately raced towards SuHo with the utmost speed. Bang! With one strike, it crashed into the monster's sword, directly snapping it in half. At this moment, SuHo's eyes were glazed over and blood continued to flow. He struggled to look up to see what was happening. Oh, it's an ant. Beru looked at SuHo with a pained and trembling expression. It extended a hand to cast a healing skill, and a faint green light enveloped SuHo's body. With a trembling voice, Beru said, "No, it's all because I came too late." After Beru finished recovering, he immediately turned to roar at the monster, his whole body trembling with extreme anger. "You insects dare to harm him." With a loud bang, Beru pierced through the monster, instantly blowing away its upper body. Not far away, another hunter was also infected with mistburn and was attacking the teacher's assistant. The assistant, although an awakener, was only level E and had no fighting power. Seeing the monster rushing to attack him, the teacher shouted in desperation, "Is anyone there? Save me." The teacher crouched down in despair, and with a swift movement, the monster was destroyed in an instant, its body shattered. Immediately after, all the other mistburn creatures were slaughtered in one strike, their bodies completely destroyed. Beru attacked wherever he went, with just a wave of his hand blowing away a part of their bodies. Beru was now extremely angry. Hunting down all the mistburn creatures around to vent his rage, he ruthlessly slaughtered all the remaining monsters. After eliminating everything, it immediately transformed into a shadowy figure and flew straight towards SuHo. It moved so fast that the glass windows it passed by shattered into pieces. In the next moment, a beam of unusually beautiful, sparkling light spread across the sky. This light turned into a shockwave, radiating outwards throughout the dungeon area. The nearby soldiers were astonished by the sight of this strange, sparkling light. Beru sullenly approached SuHo, knelt on one knee, and bowed with respect. "It's been a while, young monarch." Years ago, when he was a child, SuHo used to often draw the characters from his dreams on paper. Back then, SuHo frequently dreamt of a black ant along with a few other characters who were also black. However, SuHo still liked the ant the most. One day, while SuHo was immersed in drawing the ant, he suddenly saw a huge black ant that looked just like the one in his dream approaching. SuHo felt extremely happy, not scared at all. This black ant was wearing a pink apron. It held up the picture SuHo had just drawn and trembled. "Young monarch, is this you drawing me?" The ant was moved to tears. Suddenly, SuHo woke up, lying in a hospital bed, looking confused. "Why did I dream about that ant again?" After waking up, SuHo called his uncle, who seemed very worried. "SuHo, what's going on out there? Are you hurt?" "It can't be. This world is too chaotic now. I will arrange for you an awakened bodyguard." SuHo gently replied, "I'm fine, uncle." When SuHo opened his eyes, it had been 2 days since then, and the TV was still reporting on the shocking events at Korea University of Arts that had shocked the country. In the past few days, due to many casualties, this incident had become widespread in many ways, from the discovery of a mistburn, the monsters that could infect hunters and turn them into creatures like them. Although the incident happened right in the city, the Hunters Association's slow response could not be denied. And when the hunters arrived, a secret still remained unclear. The mistburn inside the university campus had been destroyed by an unknown cause. A bystander directly interviewed said, "The people turned into monsters, suddenly burst into flames, and exploded in front of me." SuHo heard this and immediately turned off the TV. Then he glanced around, looking for what he wanted. SuHo smiled faintly, as expected. Waking up is not a dream, but also an awakener who gets stronger as he levels up. SuHo looked at the status window. He had now reached level 5. His stats had also increased more than at first. But then SuHo remembered with horror. "Wait a minute, I remember being slashed by a C-rank mistburn awakener before. How am I still alive?" At this moment, a cold voice from under the bed said, "That's because the god Beru eliminated that trash in your place." Beru emerged from beneath the bed, materializing as a shadowy figure floating in midair. Beru looked at SuHo with uncontrollable emotion, crying profusely, "Young monarch, when did you grow up so much? I can't contain the overwhelming feelings." At that moment, some SuHo also remembered. Like scattered fragments of the past, my memories are slowly returning. I know this ant. When I was a child, it was one of the shadow creatures with me. Why have I forgotten about it until now? Beru, wiping away tears, said, Beru, I'll traverse space to come and meet the young monarch." SuHo, still bewildered and reflecting, thought, "Why did I live with the shadow creatures when I was young? I am truly curious about that." SuHo inquired, "First of all, in my memories, I don't recall you being this small. You are an ant, aren't you?" Beru replied, "This is the result of expending too much magical power while traversing space. I am usually much larger and more intimidating than this." The system window said, "You are a private grade, so." Beru growled, "Kick, it's really a joke. Beru is actually a martial grade, but why private grade? You system bastard." Thanks to the effect of longevity combined with Beru's healing skills, SuHo's wounds healed faster. He stood up and removed the bandages from his body, saying, "Anyway, I recovered thanks to you, didn't I?" Beru chuckled, "Hey, the god may not be very similar, but the god is truly a skilled healer. The god's goal here is to break your seal. But the god did not expect you to exceed the god's expectations. The god is very impressed with the young monarch." Suho was surprised. Seal. Is it the seal inside my dream? Burr replied, you may see it as a dream, but all of that is what you truly experienced. You became much stronger when you fought with me. Even when the great shadow monarch Seung Jin Woo sealed power in your memory in order to give you a normal life. Upon hearing his father's name, Suho suddenly became excited and grabbed Burr, asking, my father, do you have something to do with my father leaving home? Burr replied, he can leave home. He's in outer space. Outer space? What do you mean? After thinking for a while, Burr used his power to transform a ball into a 3D illustration for Suho to see. Simply put, the great shadow monarch Seung Jin Woo is in a place called outer space, fighting against those trying to invade this world. Suho exclaimed, my father is protecting the world. Yes, that's Itarim. The gods of outer space. Itarim is sending out their apostles and trying to invade our world before coming here to be young monarch. I, Burr, have also destroyed countless enemies. In fact, the gates and monsters appearing on Earth are the result of this battle. Suho, immersed in deep thoughts, listening to Burr's incredibly tense face, he immediately asked, does my mother go with him? Burr shook his head. Suho continued, she disappeared on the same day as my father, so I thought they went together. Hearing this, Burr startled, then exclaimed in shock, sweat pouring down like a stream. Miss Ha-in has disappeared. Itarim, the apostles of Itarim on Earth, have plotted something evil. Suho asked coldly, is it because of those scoundrels called Itarim, so my parents couldn't return right? Burr wondered, does the young monarch want to meet them again? Suho clenched his hand, his voice trembling. Of course, I have been alone for so many years. Burr said something that made Suho stunned. Well, there is a way the Lord cannot return to Earth when the war is so tense right now. But if the young monarch becomes stronger, you can search and rescue Miss Ha-in on your own. Let's upgrade. Burr summoned a dark key in his hand and handed it to Suho. At the same time, the system also launched a task, the challenge task of darkness. You are the son of the great shadow monarch, but now your innate power has been sealed. To attain that great power, you must prove yourself. Enter the shadow dungeon and prove your worth. Suho held the key in his hand and began to read the information. Item, shadow dungeon key. Rarity function. This is the key to open the door of the shadow dungeon. It can be used in Suho's shadow. Burr instructed, insert this key into your shadow. Suho held the key in his hand and slowly inserted it into his shadow, shining on the wall. The key gradually pierced through his shadow and entered a void. Suho then turned the key clockwise, and suddenly a gate resembling a dungeon entrance opened right in front of him. Burr said, go, enter there, and reclaim all the power that belongs to you, O young monarch. Suho hesitated for a few seconds, silently thinking in his head, I still can't believe it. Outer space, the battle of gods or dark kings. They are truly too absurd. But if I can meet them again by becoming stronger, I will rank up at any cost. Suho adjusted his clothing, his eyes now filled with an unusual determination and resolve. Looking at this demeanor, making Burr remember before it returned here when Hunter Seung Jin Woo ordered it. Burr, return to Earth and break Suho's seal. Burr confirmed, so you mean the sealing of the young monarch, right? Jinwoo nodded, yes, the invasion of Itarim may spread to Earth, restoring the memories and powers sealed in Suho and letting it protect Earth on its own. The rest, I allow people to decide for themselves. Burr looked at Suho's back with remorse. If you let me decide the life of the young monarch, then I, Burr, will stay by the young monarch's side and follow him to grow up. Burr followed Suho into the dungeon gate. After Suho entered, the dungeon gate gradually shrank and disappeared from space. Suho entered the dungeon. He was amazed by the scene before him. Burr explained, this is the land of the dead, where the living cannot step without the permission of the owner. This is the Dungeon of Shadows. Before Suho's eyes was a dark and cold world. Surrounded by chilling air, it looked like a city in ruins. The outer walls of the tall buildings were completely covered with moss and vines. Suho looked around and thought to himself, so this is the dark dungeon. Looks more like a desolate city than a dungeon, but for some reason I feel close to this place. Suddenly, a system appeared in front of Suho, launching a mission. Survive! The people of this dark dungeon will never accept a weakling as their master. Survive in this land for a certain period of time and prove yourself. Time required, 4 hours. Remaining time, 4 hours. Suho looked at the notification board in confusion. I have to survive here for 4 hours? Burr nervously said, please beware, young monarch, the difficult and cruel time is approaching. While Suho was still unprepared, a monster appeared on the roof of a nearby building, holding a stone axe in its hand. Seeing Suho off guard, the goblin immediately rushed to attack him from behind. Suho reacted quickly by ducking and then kicking back towards the goblin. Almost got me. The goblin was a scout. Suho was quite surprised. A scout goblin. Burr replied, having a scout here means there are many more nearby. Suho immediately realized the problem. If so, I need to deal with it quickly before it can call for reinforcements. Burr panicked. Young monarch, although goblins are weak and small creatures, rushing in carelessly is not advisable. SuHo charged toward the goblin just as it was about to blow its horn to summon its allies. SuHo noted this goblin doesn't have a color in its name, so it's either at the same level as me or lower. SuHo struck its left hand with a powerful blow and then seized the stone axe. In the next moment, SuHo decisively swung the axe straight into the goblin's head, killing it instantly. SuHo turned around and smiled, saying, "It's done. Goblins stronger than me are marked with a color in their names." Just when it seemed the situation was under control, a sudden horn blast echoed. It turned out that another scout goblin nearby had spotted SuHo and immediately blew its horn to call for reinforcements, rather than attacking. SuHo clenched his teeth in worry. It's over. Looks like there was another scout. In no time, shortly after, a group of goblins surrounded SuHo. Among them stood out a silver-haired goblin centurion and a long-tongued goblin decurion. SuHo immediately turned to Burr and asked, "Will you help me?" Burr replied dejectedly, "I wish I could assist you, but because I am too far away from your monarch's position, my mana cannot be constantly replenished, so I need to conserve my strength as much as possible. And if I were to participate in this battle, the experience you gain will decrease significantly, my young monarch." "Oh, so your point is that you will be of no use." At this point, SuHo was surrounded by hundreds, thousands of goblins. They aggressively rushed to attack SuHo. SuHo calmly turned to transfer mana into the spear that was stuck in the head of a goblin earlier. A second later, the spear was pulled out. SuHo controlled it to fly in a circle. Wherever the spear flew, it destroyed the goblins in its path. SuHo controlled the floating stone axe in the air with his ruler's authority, an active skill that doesn't require mana, allowing him to physically affect objects without needing to touch them. Suddenly, an arrow came flying towards him. SuHo tilted his head to dodge it and caught the arrow, which was shot by a goblin archer from above. "Another archer, huh? Let me return the favor." SuHo immediately used his new skill to create an invisible bow. Using the same arrow, he caught to aim directly at the goblin archer's head and shot it, piercing straight through. Burr, who was standing by, was amazed by SuHo's incredible adaptability. Such an amazing adaptive ability. I remember back in the days, the young monarch's adolescence was like the birth of a legendary hero in myths. Since then, he has been able to use the ruler's authority inherited from the monarch as he pleases. However, that power was created to destroy all beings, making it only a shackle in this peaceful world. But now, with the Itarim apostles invading Earth, the young monarch's power has begun to shine in this world. After killing dozens of goblins, SuHo was promoted. He also realized that it seemed like the limit of a level 1 ruler's hand is about 10 kilograms. While distracted, SuHo was cunningly stabbed from behind by a goblin, piercing a dagger into his rib. The goblin smirked with satisfaction. Immediately after, SuHo punched it, causing its mouth to burst. Burr was extremely worried, while the goblins took advantage of SuHo's injury and intensified their attacks. At this point, the goblin centurion started to exude a deadly rage, full of killing intent. Slowly approaching from behind with this sneak attack, SuHo lost 30 blood, leaving only 160 blood. He pulled a knife out of the wound, feeling very painful despite the lasting effects. The fierce goblin mob rushed to attack. SuHo put all his strength into his right hand and then aimed straight at the goblin centurion, throwing the knife. The knife flew out powerfully like an arrow, piercing through the filthy goblin mob in front, directly stabbing the chest of the goblin centurion. Although in pain, SuHo felt stronger than ever before. The goblins around crazily rushed to attack SuHo. His blood kept flowing uncontrollably, after a while raising his arm to block the blow. SuHo madly charged back to attack, grabbing a goblin's knife as a weapon. With a decent weapon in hand, SuHo fiercely went straight towards the goblin centurion. The goblins around bared their attacks on him. Suddenly, the system notified, "You have learned the enduring skill level 1. You have leveled up." Nearly 4 hours later, SuHo had completed his first survival mission. He had also defeated the entire goblin mob. Surrounded by dead goblins lying sprawled, bloody, the goblin centurion also shared the same fate. SuHo sat on top of the car, panting. Burr continuously clapped and cheered. "Hail, young monarch, you are truly amazing, your majesty. Burr never doubted that you would not be able to overcome this challenge, your majesty, young monarch." SuHo seemed a bit annoyed. "You really didn't help at all from start to finish, did you?" System notification. "You have received a reward for completing the challenge. Do you want to check the reward?" SuHo chose. Check. He will receive the following rewards. Reward Rune Stone, Shadow Extraction. SuHo wondered, what is a rune stone? If I use this, can I learn the Shadow Extraction skill? Mentioning this skill made Burr immediately think of the Shadow Monarch, very excited. "Ooh, Your Majesty, young monarch is learning the shadow extraction skill. SuHo pulled up his shirt to see his abs, noticing that his body had become stronger and more robust than usual. The wound he had received earlier was also gone. Looking back now, he realized he had gained a skill called endurance during the battle. It felt like he had turned into a character in a game, healing his wounds after leveling up. Beru explained that the level-up mechanism was based on a system that the monarch had used in the past to ensure safety during the development of the young monarch. SuHo nodded and accepted the reward. SuHo held the rune stone in his hand and began to read the description. Rune stone, shadow extraction skill. You can absorb skills by breaking the rune stone. SuHo tightly clenched his fist and crushed the stone, strange black mist appearing around him. System notification. You have learned the shadow extraction skill. The shadow extraction skill belongs to the authority of darkness, does not require mana, extracts the mana from a body whose life has expired and turns them into a shadow soldier. The failure rate of the extraction will increase relative to the stats of the target and time since death. Number of possible shadow extractions, 0/3. SuHo surprised, I can create shadow soldiers. Beru replied, it is a skill that can turn the dead into warriors like me. Shadow extraction skill truly is the essence of the authority that created the current shadow monarch, Lord Seung Jin Woo. It is like a form of necromancy. But if I want to command my soldiers, I need to hunt them first, so I can not only control those weaker than me. I've heard that summoning skills are not very popular among hunters. SuHo then reached out towards the Goblin Centurion's body and used the Shadow Extraction skill. System notification. Shadow Extraction skill can be used on this target. Please command the Shadow Extraction skill. SuHo grumbled, we need to come up with a separate command for the skill. It's too complicated. Beru beside him was also excited. I wonder how the young monarch will name it. After some thought, SuHo decided if it's a command, it needs to be direct. SuHo reached towards the body of the Goblin Centurion and fervently said, arise. After finishing the command, a dark shadow gradually poured out from the body of the Goblin Centurion. The shadow then grew larger and formed a hand, eventually summoning 3 shadow goblins, but they appeared smaller than when they were alive. SuHo was quite surprised at summoning shadow soldiers for the first time, so this is shadow extraction, not as great as I thought. Hearing this, Beru and the 3 shadow soldiers were all surprised. Beru explained, usually newly extracted shadows are weaker in reality. They are also smaller than usual. The 3 shadow soldiers felt very sad and started crying. SuHo was disappointed that they were weaker and would disappear after just 1 day. Beru panicked. It can't be. Don't you have the shadow storage skill, sir? SuHo shook his head. I don't. Beru sadly said, I think it's because the intelligence stat and level affect shadow authority. It's a really good skill later on, though really, it's an amazing, amazing skill. Seeing Beru and the crying soldiers like that, SuHo suddenly felt pity. I understand now, don't be sad anymore, Beru. At this point, his stomach grumbled because of hunger. Oh, now that I think about it, we haven't eaten anything in 2 days. Beru, we have to get out of here somehow. You can leave anytime using the dark dungeon key. So let's find some food first. Yes. Immediately after that, SuHo returned to the hospital. Having been hungry for so long, SuHo found the hospital food unusually delicious. He quickly gobbled down the food without stopping. Beru spoke up, dear young monarch, now I will explain what you need to do. From now on, you have a total of 3 tasks. The first is to protect the Earth from the outer space monsters. SuHo replied as he chewed, so I should go to the dungeons and hunt monsters, right? Yes, when you hunt monsters, you will level up, and the stronger you are, the safer the Earth will be, like your father did before. Secondly, you must find Mrs. Ha, and at all costs. SuHo wondered, is there any way to find my mother? Beru replied, when you hunt down outer space creatures, you may find a clue, so we still have to go to the dungeon. Beru continued, and the third task, this task is very important, that is to restore my power. I can't believe I'm just at a private grade. I want to show you my true power. So how can I restore your power? I can absorb a portion of the target's magic and knowledge by consuming them. It's an inefficient method from before I became a shadow soldier, but I have no other choice right now since I can't get magic from the monarch. Anyhow, I just need to eat something with magic, so we have to go to the dungeon. 5 minutes later, SuHo had finished his meal without a single grain left. So now we prepare to enter the dungeon, Beru quickly said. You must have a hunter's license to proceed. First, we must go to the Hunters Association to assess the magic. When it comes to magical assessments, SuHo is very curious about the level of his own power. Is he an awakened being who has leveled up, not knowing what level he will achieve? What if he is S rank? After the examination, the appraiser concluded, your magical level is 46, you are an E rank awakened being. As the twilight approached, SuHo walked out of the Hunter Guild. Beru, afraid that SuHo was sad, spoke up to console him. I heard that the rank of hunters is determined by their magical index because you only focus on increasing your strength. It is natural that your rank is low. SuHo replied solemnly, "You don't have to go out of your way to comfort me. It only makes me feel worse. Shadow authority is in such a state, and now my rank. Can an E ranker like me really protect Earth?" Burr answered, "But you can still level up." SuHo looked at his empty white hand and sighed. "I heard that punishment teams rarely hire E rank or F rank hunters. If this continues, it will be difficult even to enter the dungeons." SuHo suddenly remembered. "Oh right, there may still be a way. In the dungeon raids, the division of labor is very strict. The attacking team will raid the dungeon. The transportation team will follow and gather minerals, and the mining team will extract resources from the dungeon. Except for the attacking team, the transport and mining teams can accept E-rank hunters. In other words, even an E-rank hunter like me can enter the dungeon." So SuHo relied on some connections and successfully joined a mining team inside the crystal mine. After digging 3 times, SuHo stood up to wipe his sweat. He turned to smile and said to the person next to him, "Thank you for introducing me here. I just woke up, and you were the only person I know, Assistant Lim." SuHo held the pickaxe as he spoke, digging and chatting. "Luckily, I'm at a nearby awakener. Thanks to him, I can work here now." The assistant stood listening to SuHo speak quietly for a while before quietly speaking up. "Hey SuHo, what's up?" The assistant immediately bowed and spoke loudly. "Sorry about the university incident. I was the only awakener there, but I got scared and ran away. Sorry for not being able to do anything." SuHo scratched his head awkwardly. "Raise your head. I'm just an E-rank awakener like you. The Hunter Association advises E-rank individuals like us to run immediately when they see a magic beast. I was just following the instructions." The assistant, upon hearing this, was extremely shocked. "You're an E-rank awakener." "Yes, my mana score is 46, which is still very little for an E-rank person. Is your mana score lower than mine?" The assistant couldn't believe his ears and remembered the disaster from the day before. "I saw him fighting a magic beast on the rooftop while running away. Could it be that I was mistaken?" The assistant chuckled. "An E-rank awakener fighting with a magic beast and still surviving is truly a remarkable feat." Burr also agreed. "That's right. The young monarch is truly extraordinary." The assistant teacher was startled when he saw a dark shadow floating next to him. Feeling very scared, he shouted and fell to the ground. "Yes, yes, magic beast." SuHo asked coldly, "Why did you suddenly come out like that?" Burr replied, "Young monarch, now you are as weak as an ant larva, so I have to stay by your side to protect you to feel safe." The assistant teacher stood up in surprise. "What is this? You are awake and become a million summoner. How amazing." "Oh yes, I think so. Many E-rank hunters don't even have a skill. You are really lucky. Let me tell you, I have a running skill." The assistant teacher proudly boasted. SuHo calmly replied, "Oh, so that's why you ran away so fast." After hearing this, the assistant teacher immediately sat down depressed. SuHo quickly said, "I was just kidding." Burr seemed very excited. SuHo looked around, rolling his eyes. "Come to think of it, this is the first time I've entered a different dungeon, other than the dark dungeon where the assault team is hunting monsters ahead." Switching scenes to the assault team, the hunters were killing the last werewolves, but it seems they weren't very satisfied. This dungeon has nothing. There have only been a few werewolves appearing since earlier. Wolf pelts are not worth much. Sometimes their bodies have essence stones, so we have to work hard. Don't be too disappointed. We have to explore the whole dungeon to know. Suddenly, a hunter discovered a passage in the rock wall. He shouted, "Captain, there's something on this shortcut." The assault team then entered the shortcut, which was a large cave. In the middle, there was something like an altar. The hunters looked around quite puzzled. What is this place? What are these ruins? Shouldn't we go out and ask for help? My detection skills couldn't find any magic beasts. There's no one here. What is this place for? We have to figure it out. Who knows? Maybe there's hidden treasure here instead of a boss. In the middle of the altar, there is a strange sword stuck above. It seems to be a weapon of high rank. Together with its form and position, it enhances its rare and valuable appearance. A hunter exclaimed, "Dan, who would have thought there's a real treasure? Whoa, what is this? With this weapon, we get the jackpot." The hunters gathered around to admire the sword, but they didn't rush to take it out. "We have to assess it to be sure, but it looks amazing. Treasures like these are usually accompanied by traps, so we have to be cautious." At this moment, another hunter approached from behind. He ignored the warnings and directly grabbed the sword. "Hey, wait, Kim Yong-jun. Hey, I told you. Treasures like these usually have traps." Kim Yong-jun showed arrogance. "Even if there's a trap here, I'm a C-rank tank. I can handle it." At the moment of touching the sword, a strange power flowed into his body. His mind seemed to enter another space, surrounded by blood with a mouth full of teeth underfoot. Before he could react, the giant mouth swallowed him whole, his mind controlled by the sword. Pulling the sword out of the scabbard, he realized that there was no trap. However, Kim Yong-jun's state began to change strangely. With shark teeth growing long, he swung the sword, killing a nearby teammate, no longer himself but controlled by the sword, cutting off another teammate's head, causing fear among everyone. An eye grew on his forehead, radiating terrifying mana and roaring, "Who dares to covet the sword of the monarch of fangs?" Thoughts filled with murderous intent began to echo in Kim Yong-jun's mind. Eliminate all those who dare to step into the territory of the monarch of Fang. Kill, kill, kill. And then, after that, he charged forward to slaughter the remaining members. Speaking of SuHo at this moment, the remaining miners were truly astonished by his skills. What is this? There's even a summoning skill like that. In their view, SuHo was summoning several dark goblins to help him mine the ore. The teaching assistant Lim over here was equally surprised. I thought summoners could only summon 1 to 2 creatures, but he can call out 3 at once. If we count that talking ghost too, then it's 4. Isn't SuHo's power quite extraordinary? As he spoke, he stared intently at SuHo as if trying to discern something. Meanwhile, SuHo also had his own thoughts as he looked at the goblins in front of him. Now I can summon up to 3 at once. Moreover, if I have a corpse, I can also use shadow extraction. Just use those corpses in the dark dungeon and that's all it takes. Fortunately, these ones are willing to work without complaining. Thinking of this, he also had to change his perspective on this skill. Burr, shadow extraction seems pretty good, as you said. Burr replied in frustration. Young monarch, please don't compliment me after making them do trivial tasks like that. Then he turned to SuHo and asked, but didn't you come here to level up? Hearing Burr say that, SuHo calmly explained, it's because of the rules of the Hunters Association. An E-rank hunter can't enter that dungeon alone. I've heard that since the classification of hunters by rank began, the measuring devices have been malfunctioning, so I plan to reassess after leveling up. You still remember our 3rd mission, right? I'll undertake it now. Upon hearing this, Burr's eyes lit up. About restoring my power, yes, you said you could recover by eating things that contain mana, including those pieces of magical stones on the ground that are infused with mana, right? Hearing this, Burr understood the intention of SuHo, young monarch. Surely you intend to. Since you haven't found any magical stones, just eat these ones on the ground for now, SuHo said while waving his hand to shoo the ant aside, causing General Burr, although unwilling, to start playing with stones to regain his strength. But at that moment, Burr's 2 antennae suddenly sensed something that made him shiver. Burr hurriedly said, young monarch, I just felt the presence of a monarch. Upon hearing this, SuHo's face also changed. Monarch, do you mean my father? It can't be. It's not just a simple title of monarch. If it were a sovereign, my strength would be restored immediately. This strange scent might be... At the same time, in the back of the cave, strange noises began to emerge, causing the mining team to feel somewhat uneasy. The man frowned and replied, what is that sound? That direction is where the attack group is. It only took a few seconds for them to discover the source of the sound. At that moment, several iron-toothed wolves emerged from deep within the cave. The uncle shouted, magic beasts, why are magic beasts appearing here? Everyone run away. Meanwhile, an unfortunate young man had been targeted by a wolf. He could only swing his pickaxe wildly and shouted helplessly, go away. But unfortunately for him, that was his only weapon, and before he could defend himself for long, the wolf directly grabbed him and bit him off. In just 1 second, he said in a despairing voice, stave me, and his cry for help was indeed answered by SuHo. Without hesitation upon seeing this person in danger, SuHo immediately flew over and drove his pickaxe straight into its head. I will buy you time to run away. The man shouted, thank you. He quickly ran away, leaving SuHo alone behind to face the 3 iron-jawed wolves. It seemed that sensing SuHo was not the type to be easily teased, the 3 wolves did not rush to attack, but began silently observing him. SuHo did the same. Their names are orange, meaning they are at the same level as the Mistburn, rank that I fought at the National Academy of Fine Arts. Then I can still hold my own against them, but that's if it's just me. As he thought, he glanced at Lim Du-jun, who was trembling behind him. To avoid affecting the upcoming battle, SuHo spoke up to advise, you should run too. Hearing SuHo say that, Lim Du-jun gritted his teeth and said, SuHo, are you planning to fight them alone? No way. This time I won't run away. SuHo replied, then it's up to you. If you see me in danger, jump in to help. He also didn't forget to remind his 2 goblins, protect Leader Lim. Then SuHo opened his backpack and casually took out a sword from inside. SuHo thought to himself, the goblin weapon I got from the dark dungeon, at least this will be much better than that sword. Meanwhile, behind him, Leader Lim was truly at a loss for words. She can even summon a weapon. What kind of summoning skill does she possess? Returning to SuHo, he tightly grasped his weapon and charged directly at the 3 wolves. At the moment the iron-jawed wolf opened its mouth to bite him, SuHo struck directly at the corner of its mouth, slicing the wolf in half, much to the delight of the goblins behind him. Next, SuHo immediately used his summoning skill on the wolf's corpse. Since he could only summon 3 soldiers at a time, one goblin in the group vanished before the panicked eyes of the other 2. Thus, SuHo began to use his sword to block one iron-jawed wolf, while the other quickly bit down on the neck of another, causing it to cry out in pain. Beru joyfully thought, "Oh my young monarch is surely accustomed to fighting using the powers of darkness." Meanwhile, SuHo, satisfied with the performance of the wolf he had just summoned, thought extraction and summoning cost no mana at all. As long as I have more mana and the number of extractions increases, I'll be able to create my own army. If that's the case, I need to work hard to recruit more soldiers. While speaking, he quickly pulled the sword out of the wolf's mouth and directly pierced it through its mouth, finishing it off in the next blow. SuHo's cold voice echoed, "Arise," at the same time signaling for another goblin that had disappeared, which now finally started to look at him and shed tears as if it knew its fate. "You have defeated the steel-fanged lichen, notification that you have leveled up." Over here, SuHo also turned to use the summoning skill with the corpse of the first wolf he had killed with the pickaxe. At that moment, the bewildered voice of Leader Lim rang out behind SuHo. "Aren't you supposed to possess the physical abilities of an E-rank hunter? Moreover, you can even tame dead magic beasts." Hearing him say that, SuHo began to feel embarrassed. I got a bit too excited. Now I have to figure out how to explain this. He stammered, I really am an E-rank though," without knowing that Leader Lim had begun to doubt him. Could it be that SuHo is the false ranker, those who specialize in lying about their rankings? Back to SuHo. While he was still thinking about how to explain to Leader Lim, suddenly the system screen displayed a new mission notification. "Urgent mission, eliminate the enemy, the nearby creatures that want to kill a player, eliminate all of them and ensure your safety. Number of enemies to eliminate, 1. Number of enemies eliminated, 0. After reading the mission, SuHo immediately turned his gaze towards the cave and thought, "A new mission, so I just need to eliminate 1, but all that's around here are just the wolves I just dealt with, or is there still another one hiding somewhere else?" SuHo pondered in his heart. At the same time, inside the cave, a shadow also emerged. Looking at the armor on the shadow, Leader Lim spoke up, "Hey, you belong to the attack team, right? Here comes the savior. Let me tell you, just now a magic beast suddenly flew in out of nowhere. It scared me to death, and that's not all." While speaking, Leader Lim moved towards the dark figure without realizing anything unusual. Only SuHo noticed something was off and quickly spoke up, "Brother, wait a moment, it's very dangerous." As soon as SuHo finished his sentence, Kim Yong-jun swung his sword directly at him. Fortunately, SuHo reacted in time and grabbed the collar of Lim Du-jun, pulling him back. Otherwise, he would have been shattered like the floor below. Without time to worry about the unconscious Lim Du-jun, SuHo immediately ordered his disciples, "Wolfpack, attack quickly." Hearing his command, the wolves rushed to block Kim Yong-jun, giving SuHo a chance to take Lim Du-jun away. SuHo thought to himself, "Oh no, another hunter has lost their senses. Is it a trend for hunters to become magic beasts now? By the way, the name above his head is Lichen Fang, possessed, and it's red, indicating danger. I've experienced the feeling of being a strong name like that in art school before. The best option now is to lead Lim Du-jun to escape first." After pulling Leader Lim and throwing him aside, he turned to Beru and asked, "Beru, that guy isn't a monarch like my dad, right?" "That's right. Although he emits the same energy, he's actually much weaker than a true monarch. But that doesn't mean you can confront him in your current condition." Beru reminded him to prevent SuHo from acting recklessly, but he really was planning to take a risk. SuHo said while gripping his 2 swords tightly, "That's enough. You once said that the system always supports to ensure I level up steadily, right? If it's giving me a quest, that means I still have the ability to win. More importantly, if I want to see my parents again, I have to get stronger as quickly as possible. So right here, I will defeat a red monster and level up as fast as I can." At the same time, he used the power of the ruler to control another sword that hovered beside him. Below him were also countless other daggers in case his weapons got damaged. Behind them, Beru saw SuHo's expression and thought to himself, "Young monarch, even while facing countless daunting challenges, the young monarch never runs away. Within this fragile appearance, I can see the figure of the king inside the young monarch." Thinking about this, Beru looked at Kim Yong-jun and reminded him, "Its true form is a sword. If you sever its arm and separate it from its host, it won't be able to move anymore." SuHo murmured, "Really?" Then the wolves that had been defeated by Kim Yong-jun began to revive and charged at him, once again shocking SuHo. "Oh, after I use mana, they can move again." Beru excitedly said, "Dark soldiers are a type of soul, so as long as you have mana, they can be resurrected infinitely. How do you find the power of dark soldiers?" Before the two of them could witness the newly resurrected wolves being cut down by Kim Yong-jun with one strike, SuHo turned to Beru with a doubtful look and said, "Is that all?" Beru awkwardly explained, "It's due to the young monarch's still weak power." Turning towards Kim Yong-jun, after finishing off the pack of wolves, he raised his sword at SuHo. "How can a bug, a nobody like you, wield the power of the Shadow Monarch?" SuHo replied in surprise, "What? It can speak." Meanwhile, Beru began to shout, "You bastard! How dare you call the descendant of the Shadow Monarch a bug?" Hearing this from Beru, Kim Yong-jun trembled with excitement. The envy of the Monarch of Fangs, the descendant of the Shadow Monarch, I never expected we would meet here. He yelled out and swung his sword to slash the dagger SuHo had just thrown. SuHo responded, "Are we supposed to test each other's strength first?" Then he began to use his domination power and control countless weapons to throw straight at Kim Yong-jun. However, all the weapons were easily shattered by his swing of the sword, which didn't surprise SuHo too much. Just as I expected from a monster with red text, he could easily block this attack. If that's the case, it will have to be a game of quantity over quality. SuHo silently thought to himself and began to exert all his strength to control the weapons beneath his feet to launch an attack. However, those weapons still could not break through the defense of that Kim Yong-jun. Beru silently thought, so this is how he uses the powers of a ruler. Perhaps this is the innate talent of the young monarch. At the same time, Kim Yong-jun in front had smashed the weapon right in front of him. He let a furious yell and charged directly at SuHo, causing him to startle and grip his weapon tightly. But immediately after a single clash, the dagger in SuHo's hand shattered into pieces, forcing him to quickly move continuously to avoid the subsequent attacks from Kim Yong-jun. SuHo thought to himself, just taking one hit and the goblin's weapon has shattered. Does that mean I have no way to counterattack? If I get hit again, I will die. If this keeps dragging on, the chance of victory will only become more and more slim. But in front, the name Kim Yong-jun saw himself missing his strikes repeatedly and began to get irritated. How long do you intend to keep dodging like a coward, Shadow Monarch? You used to be a coward who hid behind his soldiers, and you are just like that miserable excuse of a man. SuHo angrily replied, "Bringing up someone else's parents is a bad move." Yeah, he did not lose his composure and charged forward to attack, even though he was being provoked. "I still don't have enough confidence to defeat him. Damn it! If only I had more power." He gritted his teeth in thought, while also recalling a conversation he had with Beru previously. "Can I ask you something? If my seal has been lifted, then why hasn't the power I had while climbing the tower returned to me?" In response to this question, the small ant calmly explained, "The power of the young monarch has been sealed since he was little. Currently, it can be considered that he is in the process of reclaiming that power. If he regains his strength, he will undoubtedly be capable of defeating various types of monsters. However, remember that this is just a dream, not reality. Consider this as a test to see how well he can control his innate talents. His physical strength will vanish whether he passes the test or not." SuHo lamented, "So it turns out this is just a game." Seeing his demeanor, Beru comforted him, "Your experience in that tower is not useless. Try to recall the feeling and fighting spirit you had." Back to the battle, SuHo was also trying to rediscover those feelings. "I definitely remember the sensation from that time. While in the tower, I mainly focused on unarmed combat. If I can find those steel gloves again, the shadow soldiers always exist in spirit form, so as long as you have mana, they can still be resurrected." Beru's earlier words suddenly echoed in SuHo's mind once again, making him realize something. "Think carefully, I can change Beru's shape according to my liking. If that's the case, then rides." He murmured and summoned the two wolves that had been defeated. Kim Yong-jun in front of him was enraged just by seeing these shadow soldiers. "Is that trick again? Don't you realize that it has no effect at all? I will cut off your head first." As he spoke, he had already closed in on SuHo, raising his sword above his head and preparing to make a chopping motion. Meanwhile, our protagonist was allowing the two wolves to merge into his hands. Just like that, Kim Yong-jun's sword came crashing down, making him smile with delight as if he could already see his victory. But unfortunately, that smile didn't last long before his face began to grimace as his sword was blocked by SuHo, gloves transformed by the shadow soldiers. Steel Fanged Lichen, truly hard as its name, Shadow Steel Fanged Lichen level 1, form change, Gauntlet. Attention, Shadow Extraction skill has leveled up, Shadow Extraction level 2, form change, requires shadow control ability without mana, can change the shape of darkness. Not having the time to care about the system notifications at that moment, SuHo forcefully swung his hand to break the attacking stance of Kim Yong-jun. He happily said, "With this, fighting will be more feasible." Following that, the two of them began unleashing countless lightning-fast attacks at superhuman speed. Meanwhile, Beru, who was in the back, could hardly believe his eyes. Oh my, the young monarch can turn shadow soldiers into weapons. The shadow monarch, who infinitely transcends levels, stood ready to freely control shadows. However, young monarch has only just learned the basics. His current level can only create a single ant larva, yet he can grasp the next stage without any teaching. The combat intuition he possesses has the aptitude of a ruler, and now he can even use Shadow Punch. Oh, my young monarch. At the same time, SuHo unleashed a thunderous punch straight at Kim Yong-jun's stomach, causing his entire body to fly backward like a sack. However, it seemed that just one punch wasn't enough to take down Kim Yong-jun, so immediately afterward, he began to rise and scream furiously. Meanwhile, SuHo grabbed an axe, holding it tightly in his hand while controlling several other weapons to charge directly at Kim Yong-jun. This time, with a wild slash, SuHo successfully severed the sword-bearing arm of Kim Yong-jun. Beru thought to himself upon witnessing his victory, young monarch is truly a genius. Back to SuHo, after defeating this monster, he let out a heavy sigh and said, I was worried because he was a red-named monster, but he wasn't unbeatable. Beru beside him confirmed, I have never doubted the young monarch's victory for a single moment. But SuHo didn't believe him at all. He complained, you're outright lying. He turned to look at his gloves, his eyes gleaming with joy. In addition, this battle has helped me learn a new way to fight. This result isn't bad, right? We should take a look at the rewards for a bit. As he spoke, SuHo opened the system screen to check the mission reward notification. You will receive the following rewards. Rune Stone Reward, Storm Slash. Notification. You have learned the skill Storm Slash. Skill Storm Slash level 1. Active skill, energy consumption 50. The momentum of the raging wind is condensed on your sword. You can attack multiple enemies at once. As this sound echoed, a gentle breeze began to appear around SuHo. And at that moment, he was extremely satisfied with this skill. A skill. This is the reward I've really wanted. I have an intuition about using this skill. Let's give it a try. SuHo muttered to himself and then directed his gaze toward the sword that had controlled Kim Yong-jun. Let's see now about my weapon. He spoke as if he intended to use this sword, and that was exactly what the sword desired. Damn it, thinking about the defeat at the hands of those of Shadow Monarch blood was indeed humiliating. But this was not the end. Human greed is boundless. Indeed, at the very moment you touch me, your ambition will consume you. The sword laughed inwardly. However, when SuHo touched it, nothing happened. You have obtained the item, Rankin Fang. SuHo smiled, evaluating the sword. It was much better than goblin weapons. This left the sword bewildered. There truly exists a human who is not under my control. Have you inherited the power of the Monarch of Fangs? Ignoring its words, SuHo could not help but want to use it to test his new skills. Immediately, SuHo began to slightly crouch down, simultaneously turning and swinging the sword forward, creating countless streams of sword energy shooting in all directions, leaving numerous slash marks throughout the cave. SuHo nodded and said, the fact that it consumes all its energy after just one use seems a bit troublesome, but I quite like its destructive power. It seems that fearing that my young monarch might develop arrogance, caretaker Beru hurriedly reminded, your reaction to harnessing the power of darkness is still too superficial. The power of darkness is an ability that is 100,000 times more incredible. Putting this aside, soon after, the leader limb also regained consciousness. SuHo asked, you're awake now. At this moment, Lim Du-jun rubbed his temples and spoke, SuHo, what just happened? He smiled and said, oh, it's a long story. Would you like to hear it on the way out? When the assistant saw that Kim Yong-jun had one of his arms severed beside him, he was immediately alarmed. Cutting to the outside of the gate, everyone had been safely brought outside. I'll go check if there are any other survivors in the dungeon, the leader limb hastily responded. All right, answered the leader limb. Next, he looked at SuHo with a curious expression. E-rank and a summoner, he should just be like those nameless fighters in small tournaments. How could SuHo be this strong? Well, that doesn't matter now. What matters is that SuHo has saved everyone here. Speaking of SuHo, he was also taking the opportunity to equip his gloves and knock out the entire pack of iron-jawed wolves before the Hunters Association could address the issue, and thanks to their efforts, it didn't take too long. SuHo received a notification of level up from the system. There are still many wolf-type magic beasts inside. They can help us gain experience points. Beru nodded and said, so you shouldn't waste it. Meanwhile, SuHo turned to look at the sword behind him and asked, by the way, why has your attack power suddenly decreased? The cursed sword replied, do I look like someone willing to cooperate with the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch? Item, Rankin Fang. Rarity, unknown. Category, sword. Attack plus 35. Stat adjustment. A sword made from the fang of Rakan, king of beasts. The spirit of Rakan dwells within this sword, and those of low status may have their bodies taken if they wield it. Effect disdain for the weak. Sends a designated target into the fear state for 1 minute. All stats 50% effect critical wound. 50% chance to inflict double critical damage. Burr disdainfully says, an ability only to fight against those weaker than oneself? Truly shameful. But the sword immediately retorts, shameful. Is there any foolish hunter who chooses a target stronger than themselves? Burr reminds, the young monarch has defeated you, a relatively strong enemy. This makes the sword stammer and unable to respond. That. Returning to SuHo, seeing the two behind him talking to each other gives him a slight headache. First, a talking insect, and now another sword. This is so chaotic. Next, SuHo approaches the stone pedestal where the sword is embedded and discovers the bodies of the hunters killed by Kim Yong-jun. Burr calmly says, they're all dead. The sword behind pays no attention and replies, Humph, I merely eliminate those who dare to invade my territory. My duty is to protect the sacred ground of the monarch of Fangs. However, without waiting for the sword to finish its sentence, SuHo directly took it and plunged it straight into the ground. You should keep quiet for a moment. After doing this, SuHo also turned his gaze towards the corpse nearby, and the system announced that he could perform shadow extraction from this body. SuHo asked again, can shadow extraction be used on human bodies as well? Burr nodded and explained, any corpse, regardless of species, can become your soldier, dear young monarch. Hearing the little ant say that, SuHo also extended his hand forward. However, instead of performing shadow extraction, he quietly carried the bodies of these hunters outside. This surprised Burr a bit. Are you going to use shadow extraction? SuHo replied, no, making them fight even after they passed away is just another form of torment. His answer also left Burr in thoughtful silence for a moment. After collecting the bodies of 10 hunters, he turned to Burr and asked, hey Burr, you said this was the sanctuary of a monarch, right? Father is one too, but there were also the monarchs he killed, right? What are they really? Is this connected to Itarim as well? In response to the question, Burr quickly replied, you could think of Itarim as the current enemy of His Majesty, and the monarchs are the former enemies of him. Including His Majesty, there are a total of 9 monarchs. Your father, the great Seung Jin Woo, is the king of death, the shadow monarch. There is also the king of magic beasts, the monarch of fangs, the queen of insects of plague, the monarch of plagues, the king of monstrous humanoids, the monarch of the iron body, the king of demons, the monarch of white flames, the king of giants, the monarch of the beginning, the king of snow folk, the monarch of frost, the king of demonic specters, the monarch of transfiguration, and finally, the king of berserk dragons, the monarch of destruction. Although all 9 monarchs possess limitless power, when those 8 monarchs invaded the earth, they were all defeated at the hands of His Majesty. SuHo stared blankly and said, did father really do that? And without waiting for Burr to respond, the sword beside him spoke on his behalf. Indeed, the shadow monarch is the enemy who killed my master, the monarch of Fangs. O bearer of the shadow monarch's blood, if my power had not been diminished, I would have torn you to pieces. Then I would throw you to the wolves. The sword threatened. However, in response to its words, SuHo was not angry at all. After a few moments of contemplation, he calmly said, it is not that I do not understand your feelings. My father fought against the monarchs with the aim of protecting the earth, and you simply want to protect this place from the hands of invaders. The actions of both sides are meant to protect what is important to them. But there is one thing that troubles me, that you think you must fight me simply because I carry the blood of the shadow monarch. If protecting this place is your duty, then isn't it foolish for you to have a hostile attitude towards my father, who defeated the monarch of Fangs? I want to see my father and mother, whom I cannot reach because of the invaders from the outside. As long as I can achieve that goal, I am willing to use any power, even the most wicked. If Itarim begins their invasion, then this place will not escape chaos, will it? If you help me, I will help you protect this place. SuHo spoke with a tone full of seriousness that made even the sword ponder, questioning itself, to cooperate with the one bearing the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch. SuHo asked again, what do you think about the Monarch of Fangs and Shadow becoming one? The scene shifted to a cafe where a few people from the broadcasting station were taking the opportunity to quickly interview Lim Do-jun regarding the total wipeout of the assault team that occurred in the D-rank dungeon yesterday. Could you provide us with detailed information about it? Mr. Lim Do-jun, the survivor of yesterday's event. The young man smiled as he replied while thinking to himself, I will tell you everything, even though I am E-rank. I am sure that the way SuHo is treated will improve if he receives recognition. This is a great opportunity for me to repay SuHo. That night, an article appeared on the internet. The details of the article discussed how an E-rank hunter had rescued other hunters in a dungeon entirely by his own strength. The article included interviews with witnesses who saw the E-rank hunter heroically charge into a group of magical monsters to save people. The number of individuals he rescued was countless. Cut to a certain company, a man began to speak up, suggesting, "Isn't it time for us to find some new names? This is Black Tortoise Guild Management Team 2. In response to the question, a man from the same team nodded in agreement. "That's right. The support team is very frustrated due to the lack of personnel. I think we should recruit a few more E-rank hunters. I've just sent everyone information about a candidate. What do you all think of this person?" Lee Jung-ho continued speaking. He was the manager of Team 2. Hearing his words, one of the subordinates focused intently on the computer screen. "Let's see. An E-rank hunter. He evacuated the mining team in a D-rank dungeon while fighting monsters and brought out the injured hunters from the assault team." The subordinate shouted with an incredulous look, "An E-rank hunter? If a big guild like ours could recruit that kid, wouldn't it make a sensational news, a potential E-rank hero?" Lee Jung-ho laughed, and the subordinate immediately said he would contact SuHo right away. After a while, Lee Jung-ho started to ask again, "Has Hunter some?" SuHo replied, "Recruited by Black Tortoise Guild while he's just an E-rank hunter. He must be thrilled." The subordinate awkwardly replied, "Oh yes, he declined." That made Lee Jung-ho's face change as well. "What? He declined Black Tortoise Guild? Is that for real? A major guild being turned down by an E-rank hunter one day?" The subordinate added, he said he has no intention of joining any guild. And after hearing this, Lee Jung-ho thought that SuHo must have gone crazy. A hunter who doesn't join any guild? Does he think he's S rank or something? The subordinate calmly replied, "Yes, he might call us back after that. He will soon realize the seriousness of not joining any guild." Meanwhile, our protagonist let out a tired sigh. "Phew, since returning from the dungeon, I've received a bunch of invitations from various guilds." Burr said with a smile, "Many people are eager for you, young monarch." Over here, SuHo was also very aware of the guild's intentions, but they just want to hire me to carry things and gather items. What's with all this competition? Joining a guild would only hinder my leveling up, so there's no reason for me to join. At this point, he turned to look at the cursed sword and asked, "So, can we continue our conversation now, Raken Fang?" Going back to a time before, when SuHo made his alliance request, Raken Fang found it very difficult to understand. What was wrong with this person? It was absurd, yet he still said it. However, if we in Shadow no longer have to confront each other, but join forces as allies. Thinking of this, the sword also spoke. "I have a condition. Take me to another sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs." Returning to the present as they had made a commitment, SuHo also wanted to quickly fulfill his wish. Some of you know the way to that place. If it is the sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs, no matter how far we will find it. However, right now the portal leading there has disappeared. Humans call this phenomenon a dungeon break. Next to him, SuHo felt a bit worried upon hearing this. So that sanctuary has also turned into a field dungeon. Explaining about the field dungeon, it is a desolate land created after the dungeon break incident transformed those abandoned portals into habitats for various monsters. At the same time, SuHo also opened his phone to reread the message from his uncle. "Uncle here, I have to go out for a few days. If you don't hear from me, don't worry." He had just said that and finished equipping himself. Shall we now go to the place where the sanctuary is? The scene shifts to a mountainous area. Due to the dungeon break event, this area has been surrounded. Looking at the no entry symbol in front, SuHo's face shows hesitation. "Are you sure this is the right place? Are you certain?" The sword confirms. "This place is right in an area occupied by some guild. Invading private property is illegal. It seems this is Hyena Guild's territory. I've heard that guild is full of ruffians. You're bound to encounter thugs if you go in." SuHo says this while looking at his phone screen. Meanwhile, the small ant Burr has started to tempt him. "Instead of following the orders of that thing, wouldn't it be better for you to focus on leveling up and increasing your strength? What are you planning to do? Then prepare to move in, of course." As he speaks, SuHo begins to use his dominion power. Burr anxiously asks, "What about the Hyena Guild?" SuHo responds, "I'll deal with that now." At the same time, he starts to channel his power into the camera above and shatters it in an instant. "Now I'm going to have to worry about being spotted anymore." Burr praised, "The way you handle everything without any hesitation is so much like your majesty." After that, when they entered, the scene before the three of them was a forest filled with fog. SuHo curiously said, "Do field-type dungeons usually have this much fog?" The little ant quickly explained, "This fog is magic from the outer world. It disrupts the space barrier and creates rifts in the world." On SuHo's back, the cursed sword added, "That's why the sanctuary I want to reach has passed through the rifts and arrived on Earth. Those in outer space are also trying to drill a hole in this space to send their true tier. The stronger one's magical power is, the more easily they are affected by spatial movements just like me. So it means it will take some more time for the stronger ones to arrive here, right? Alright, if so, I just need to level up. SuHo smiled and spoke while carefully observing ahead, where a swarm of monsters had gathered, including black leopards and demon apes. Upon seeing them, the cursed sword also began to boil with excitement. Finally, it's time to showcase my power. Hearing this, SuHo was a bit surprised. Oh, you're quite the fighter, aren't you? But I will use you as a weapon. I've already figured out how to fight. One of the basics in the guide that I've memorized is to use Dominion power for mid-range and long-range attacks and to use a combination of weapons to break their formation. While speaking, SuHo activated the Storm Slash skill, creating countless slashes flying in all directions and blowing the monsters away. Next, gathering more troops by summoning shadows, SuHo calmly explained, "This is my fighting style." And Burr on this side was so excited that he was practically going insane. That's awesome, young monarch. Even the cursed sword had to acknowledge SuHo's strength. So, this is the power of one from the monarch's shadow lineage. The more enemies there are, the longer the battle drags on, and he becomes stronger by using the ones he has killed. If this continues, we will lose. The cursed sword thought to itself. On this side, SuHo has also successfully summoned 5 dark soldiers consisting of 2 monkeys and 3 leopards. Since he has increased his intelligence stats, he can now accompany 5 dark soldiers at the same time. So what is that compared to the 10 million troops that His Majesty has? Quiet down. SuHo approached and simultaneously gave Burr a smack on the head. Next, after going deeper inside, the cursed sword also sensed the location of the sanctuary. There it is, the gate leading to the sanctuary. The sword spoke up, and following the gaze of the 3, their destination was inside a base of the guild. Strangely, even though it was late at night, there were still a few guards awake. The group began to complain, "How boring. I can't believe there are still people here at this hour. I wonder how diligent they are." SuHo wondered to himself, but why are they here at this hour? Are they supposed to be capturing magic beasts these days to gain more rewards? At the same time, down below, a heavy vehicle was slowly moving into the base. Next, a few hunters from the guild led down several ordinary people whose eyes were covered and hands tightly bound. Seeing their terrified expressions, SuHo's face began to turn cold as he turned to Burr and asked, "Burr, what we are witnessing is human trafficking, isn't it?" Burr quickly responded, "It must be." He guessed what SuHo intended to do, so he hurriedly advised, "Young monarch, we are trespassers here, so it's better not to make any moves. If we get caught," before he could finish his sentence, Burr's voice fell silent because SuHo had disappeared from his sight moments ago. The cursed sword spoke up, "He's gone." This startled Burr, who looked ahead. As for SuHo, his actions were influenced by his family's upbringing. His father was a detective who pursued criminals, and his grandfather was a legendary firefighter. The 21-year-old SuHo grew up by observing both of them, sharing a common trait that they could not stand idly by in the face of injustice. Therefore, when he saw such a situation, he did not hesitate about the consequences and immediately rushed to rescue. First, he dove down at an incredible speed, aiming his foot directly at the face of the white-haired man. Just like that, this hunter received a powerful kick from SuHo straight to the face and fell flat on the ground under the speechless gaze of Burr and the shadowy figures, along with the extreme confusion of his teammates beside him. After about 2 seconds, the bald man holding the axe suddenly shouted, "How dare you?" Hearing them say that, SuHo was startled and quickly turned his face away to avoid being seen. "Oh no, I acted too quickly. Invading another guild's territory is illegal. What should I do now?" He worriedly thought, but quickly found a way to handle the situation by using his shadow soldiers and creating a mask to cover his true appearance. And after he no longer had to worry about being exposed, SuHo boldly turned back and declared, "You have kidnapped and threatened others. What the hell is the Hyena Guild doing?" In the front, the one with the axe suddenly saw a stranger rush into their territory and attack their people. After that, he turned back and, furious as it was justified, yelled, "That question should be for us to ask. You have invaded someone else's territory and even attacked. Do you want to die? Handle him." He shouted. The remaining thugs also began to rush forward for a group attack. However, their attacks appeared extremely slow in SuHo's eyes, allowing him to dodge effortlessly. SuHo even had to hold back his strength. At a glance, the average rank of Hyena Guild members is D rank. I need to restrain my power. While thinking, he started to adjust his strength slightly and directly threw a punch at the tank top guy. He flew back, dragging the axe wielder with him. Then, taking advantage of the 2 bald men not reacting in time, SuHo charged up and kicked both of them in the face, causing them to spurt blood from their noses. In this way, SuHo took down these 4 in just a few dozen seconds. Young monarch, you have become stronger than before, and those D-rank awakeners do not stand a chance against you anymore. I, Burr, am truly moved. At this moment, SuHo's current status appeared. Name, some SuHo level, 16 class, none. Weakness, none. Title: None in Life. 2350 energy, 235 strength, 33 stamina, 25 agility, 25 intelligence, 25 perception, 25 current points, none. Back to SuHo. After defeating all the hunters, he tied them up to ensure they wouldn't escape. Beru praised, "You have handled everything, ya mark." The recently rescued individuals turned to thank him. "Thank you for saving us. Are you a hunter from the Hunter Association?" Hearing her words, SuHo was slightly taken aback but quickly replied, "Ah, sure, you can think of it that way. I'll take care of this place. Everyone should escape to safety." Looking at the crowd getting on the vehicles and leaving this area, SuHo wondered, but why is the Hyena Guild kidnapping people? Not letting him think too much, the cursed sword began to speak. "Hey SuHo, I can sense it. The reason I told us we had to come to this area." Following the guidance of the cursed sword, SuHo was led to a warehouse area. After witnessing the scene inside, SuHo's eyes widened as it was filled with iron cages and various items. He gritted his teeth and said, "Is this where they imprison people?" Meanwhile, Beru faintly sensed an energy. This vague energy it can't be. As they spoke, the three glanced at the iron cage next to them, where a small wolf was being held. They even locked a dog up here. What on earth is the Hyena Guild trying to do? The cursed sword calmly said, "This is not a dog. It is the descendant of the king of beasts, the monarch of fangs." After hearing this, SuHo couldn't contain his astonishment and exclaimed, "What?" Knowing that SuHo was unaware of what was happening, the sword explained. After being defeated by the Shadow Monarch in the war, the Monarch of Fangs designated a guardian to escort his remaining descendants to a shelter. He believed that another Monarch of Fangs would be reborn one day if his bloodline could survive. "In fact, I do not even desire the birth of a new Monarch of Fangs. I only hope that his descendants can survive." The cursed sword expressed its feelings while SuHo quickly freed the dog and held it in his arms. At this point, the little ant Beru also stared at the dog and nodded, saying, "Indeed, I can vaguely sense the aura of the Monarch of Fangs, but its vitality has weakened. If left alone, it will die. Young Monarch, what will you do?" Beru spoke while looking at SuHo, waiting for his response. But before SuHo could make a decision, a voice rang out behind them. "What's going on here? Since the guys outside were all knocked out, I thought it would at least be a few people. But it seems there's only one person here." The sudden voice from behind truly startled SuHo. Immediately, he put on his mask and gritted his teeth, thinking, "Damn, there's still one left." After that thought, SuHo quickly turned around, and what caught his eye was a wolf-like monster with a human posture. Wait, a monster. SuHo's eyes widened as everything began to spiral out of control. The Hyena Guild is really useless. A bunch of people like this, I really can't trust humans. After hearing its sound and seeing its shape, the cursed sword cried out, "Brokey, you're still alive." SuHo turned to ask, "Do you know him?" "Yeah, kind of," the sword admitted, explaining. "That guy is the guard given to the descendant I mentioned before." At this point, Brokey also recognized the identity of the sword long ago and greeted, "Long time, no see, Rake and Fang, so you're still alive." Ignoring this greeting, the sword began to unleash a surge of power and questioned Brokey. "Have you forgotten that your duty is to protect the descendants? What have you done to them to make them like this?" Hearing the sword speak, Brokey glanced at the dog in SuHo's arms. Its gaze gradually became cold and sharp. Then, within just 1 second, it closed in right in front of SuHo. "Human, do you dare to touch my belongings?" As it spoke, it swiftly grabbed the dog from SuHo's arms while its other hand formed a fist and punched SuHo, sending him flying backward like a cannonball. The final result was that he smashed into 4 shipping containers before coming to a stop. Beru worriedly said, "Young Monarch, are you all right?" SuHo replied while starting to get up, "This is the hardest hit I've taken recently." Beru cried out again, causing SuHo to have a headache. "Your head is still bleeding. It hurts so much. Stop shouting, Beru." SuHo reminded him. At the same time, thanks to this punch, his resilience skill leveled up, increasing his physical resistance by 20%, bringing it to a total of 40%. Turning to Beru, seeing that SuHo didn't seem to be too badly injured, he quickly voiced his thoughts. "Young Monarch, when we first arrived here, I sensed the faint remnants of a type of energy. I just realized what it was, Itarim. I can feel the energy of Itarim emanating from him." Upon hearing this, SuHo's face visibly fell. Meanwhile, inside the house, the sword continued to question Brokey. "Hey Brokey, what do you think you're doing with the descendant of the Monarch of Fangs?" In response to this question, Brokey began to counter. "Do you think I maintain this power without a shelter? It's simple. Only the strong can survive, and the fate of the weak depends on the will of the strong. It's obvious that the weak are created to be food for the strong. This trash is weak, but after all, it is a descendant of the Monarch of Fangs, so it is the best source of nourishment for me. Therefore, I will eat it. More precisely, I will often absorb the bloodline of the monarch of fangs from it. The hyena Brokey explained in madness. Hearing these words from it, Raken Fang nearly exploded. Brokey, even if I die, I must take your life. Heh. A piece of trash like you is of no value. The reason Raken died is that he was weak. I have survived until now, which makes me strong. I am the one who will become the monarch of fangs. Then Brokey declared in madness before the cursed sword below suddenly shot up and stabbed into his arm, causing him to lose grip on the little wolf in his hands. Meanwhile, our SuHo used his dominion power to retrieve the sword. The cursed sword spoke, as if wanting to say something. It seems you are quite angry with him, huh? But that's good. I have something to settle with him too, and this will be the first alliance between Shadow and the monarch of fangs. SuHo spoke while looking straight ahead, his gaze filled with coldness. Itarim, I have finally found a clue about my father. On the opposite side, seeing himself being disturbed like that, Brokey became furious. What an annoyance. This bug dare, I will kill you. Brokey declared. At this moment, a strange symbol also seemed to appear in his eyes. SuHo also received a mission notification from the system. Mission notification, emergency mission, hunt the hyena, requirements, defeat the hyena Brokey and ensure personal safety. Brokey defeated Zero first. On this side, Beru, seeing the battle about to begin, could only cry silently inside, thinking, I can only watch from the sidelines. At the same time, the little wolf also seemed to be starting to wake up. Meanwhile, after reading the mission notification, SuHo had countless questions. The hyena Brokey, looking at this shape, I can see why he has that name. But how can a monster build a guild and kidnap others? Could it be related to Itarim? Beside them, the hyena guild's workers had also woken up. After seeing Brokey's figure, they hurriedly called for help. The bald one shouted, Lord Brokey, please save us. He is not an ordinary person. We will help you. SuHo over here also realized that Brokey was too powerful. If he had these minions helping him, it would be even more difficult, so he was determined not to let that happen. Don't think I'll let you do whatever you want. As he spoke, he took a defensive stance, ready to rush in at any moment. However, contrary to what SuHo and the low-ranking soldiers thought, instead of rescuing them, Brokey directly opened his mouth and devoured the heads of these hunters, swallowing them whole. This action caused them to immediately meet the Grim Reaper. The sudden turn of events left SuHo's face frozen. When he saw the confusion on his face, Brokey calmly wiped the blood from his mouth and explained, Do you think I need anyone else's help to deal with pests like you? Those who don't know their place must be eliminated immediately. Hearing this name regard human life as worthless, SuHo could no longer contain his anger. Brokey, he shouted, swinging his sword straight at the hyena. However, his sword was easily blocked by the hyena with his bare hands. While both sides were in a deadlock, SuHo took the opportunity to question him. How dare you kill people for such reasons? Hearing the question, Brokey responded mockingly, The weak's right to live or die is decided by the strong. A strong person like me needs no reason to deal with those insignificant beings. With that, the hyena forcefully swung his hand forward, tossing SuHo's body away, but he quickly regained his balance, so he was not injured by the throw. However, before SuHo could react, Brokey charged directly at him, throwing a devastating punch that twisted the entire container beyond recognition. Luckily, SuHo managed to dodge in time. Otherwise, he would have definitely been out of the game with just one hit. Next came the super fast back and forth attack from both sides. As if sensing that SuHo's speed was also something difficult to handle, Brokey stomped his foot hard on the ground to maintain his balance. At the same time, he opened his mouth and shouted loudly ahead, creating a powerful shockwave that shattered everything in its path. Unfortunately, this attack missed its target as SuHo had already leaped high and was preparing to strike him. As he began to fall closer to Brokey's position, SuHo used the skill Storm Slash, delivering countless slashes to the body of this hyena. However, after the skill ended and he took a look back, he realized that these wounds were not very deep, only superficial injuries that barely affected Brokey. He laughed and said, "Ha ha, is that all you've got? At this rate, the divine weapon of Fang of Monarch will be crying." But before he could finish his words, the cursed sword, controlled by SuHo, the power of domination, pierced directly into his body from behind. "I'm not done yet," SuHo said coldly, while beginning to control the sword to spin like a drill, drilling through the body of Brokey. At the same time, the cursed sword also spoke up with a question. "Brokey, why have you come like this? You used to respect and swear loyalty to Lord Rakan, so what made you change?" Hearing the voice of the cursed sword, a shadow suddenly began to appear in Brokey's mind. "I used to respect Rakan a lot," he wondered to himself. But at that moment, the symbol in his eyes suddenly lit up, dispelling his earlier doubts. "That's not true. I never respected him at all. Back then, I surrendered only because of his power. I will not return to the life of a weakling anymore." While speaking, Brokey grabbed the cursed sword tightly and threw it forcefully to the ground, causing the sword to shatter instantly into two. SuHo, who was nearby, also worriedly shouted, "Fang!" However, before SuHo could worry too much, Brokey turned and landed a punch in his stomach, causing SuHo to throw up blood immediately. "You pest! You still have time to worry about others." "It hurts so much, it feels like my bones are about to be crushed, but thinking about my father fighting somewhere, I can't fall now." SuHo gritted his teeth and at the same time clenched his fist tightly and threw a punch at the hyena's stomach to retaliate. Thus, both of them started going crazy and attacked each other directly without avoiding. As for the cursed sword, when the sword broke in half, its life also reached its limit. The blade is broken, its strength is gradually fading away. Is this the end? The survival of my bloodline, the future of my clan, all resting in the hands of a person named SuHo. I want to keep fighting. I want to fight. Raken's fangs screamed inside before a groan sounded from beside him. The odor of this sound was none other than the small wolf from earlier. At that moment, it was trying to get up, looking towards the sword, the hair of Lord Rakan. So it had been stimulated by SuHo's fighting spirit. As it thought, it saw the entire little wolf begin to emit a weak surge of energy. But just like that, the cursed sword was able to understand the intent of this wolf. I understand the last thing I can do is transfer the remaining power in my body to him. As it thought, the sword also began to transform into a beam of light, entering the little wolf's body, causing all its wounds to heal in an instant. Back to SuHo. After being punched away by Brokey, his body had also reached its limit of endurance. The remaining life force is 21,250s. I thought I had become stronger, but can I actually defeat him? SuHo wondered to himself. Meanwhile, Brokey, not wanting to prolong the fight any longer, charged directly to finish him off. "You held on quite long for a bug. Now die." Having said that, he opened his mouth, revealing sharp fanged teeth, and aimed his claws straight at SuHo. SuHo cursed under his breath as he had no strength left. Damn it! At that moment of greatest danger, the little wolf had grown larger, leaping forward to bite directly into Brokey's hand, saving SuHo's life right before his eyes. Seeing this, Brokey let out a painful scream as the little wolf's teeth left several bloody marks on his arm. After doing this, it immediately returned to SuHo's side to protect him. At the same time, the system displayed several notifications. Notification: the descendant of the Monarch of Fangs has shown respect for your fighting spirit. Do you want to make the descendant of the Monarch of Fangs your ally? Seeing this notification, SuHo's eyes lit up with surprise. That wolf is the descendant of the Monarch of Fangs and wants to become my ally, he said while staring intently at the wolf in front of him, as if trying to discern something. Returning to Brokey, although the larger form of the little wolf surprised him a bit, he soon understood what had happened. "You are the descendant of Rakan, aren't you? You have absorbed mana from Rakan's fang, right?" Hearing Brokey say that, SuHo's face reflected realization. So, it had absorbed mana from Rakan's fang. It seemed that Sword had chosen to sacrifice itself to save the descendant of the Monarch of Fangs. Looking at the recruitment request from the system, SuHo continued to ponder. After all, he had intended to cooperate with Rakan's fang from the very beginning, so there was no reason to refuse now. After thinking it through, he quickly pressed the confirm button on the system screen, and immediately after, a special connection formed between the two of them. Something was flowing into his mind, SuHo thought. At the same time, some images also appeared in his head. At this moment, Brokey was speaking to the little wolf sadly beside him. "O descendant of the great Rakan, we lost in the battle against the Shadow Monarch. But after all, this world follows the principle that only the strong survive. Because we have been defeated, we will lose countless things. Please become truly strong so that the Monarch of Fangs can rise again." The memory shifted to a different image. At this moment, a group of people with glowing circles above their heads surrounded both of them. In the face of their power, Brokey gritted his teeth and said, "Why? Why haven't you killed me yet?" In response to this question, a child in the arms of a woman glanced at Brokey and answered, "This monster looks useful. Moreover, it just so happens that you are exactly what I need. Therefore, I will choose you." Following the child's voice, the woman took out a gem and directly inserted it into Brokey's eye. "Hyena and Brokey, from this moment on, your mission is to capture humans and deliver them to us. The thing I have implanted in you will enhance your strength. Of course, depending on who uses it, the desires they possess might be distorted." The image ended. Upon observing this, SuHo understood everything clearly. Is that a memory of the descendant of the Monarch of Fangs? Those people implanted something into Brokey's eyes. They are the masterminds related to Itarim. The descendant of the Monarch of Fangs does not want to avenge Brokey, but is trying to control his rampage. If this is related to their plan, then I must defeat Brokey. but with my current strength, it is impossible to win against him. SuHo thought to himself while looking at the terrifying monster emitting power right in front of him. Just like hearing his inner thoughts, the system issued an emergency notification. Notification: you have received a mission for recruiting a teammate. Mission information: descendant of the monarch of Fangs. Find the descendants of other monarchs and recruit them as your teammates. Number of descendants of monarchs you have recruited: 1/8. Reward: unclear. A linking skill is being established from the bond with the descendant of the monarch of Fangs. As the notification ended, both SuHo and the little wolf emitted a beam of light. Then, immediately after, both beams of light began to merge, creating a more intense light that forced everyone around to shield their eyes. What is happening? The young monarch is going through a transformation different from his majesty. Beru shouted. The hyena Brokey was not foolish enough to wait. Without waiting for the transformation of SuHo and the little wolf to complete, he charged forward to attack, hoping to sever this link. I don't know what is happening, but do you think I will just stand by and watch until it ends? As he spoke, he surged ahead, delivering a powerful punch that created a terrifying wave of energy rushing forward. However, as the cloud of dust and smoke cleared, Brokey immediately realized that his punch had not hit the target, as it had been pushed aside by an arm. At that moment, SuHo appeared in a completely new form. This was his extremely new state, having sacrificed the sword in exchange for the wolf. Skill link: Beast Possession Level 1. Mana consumption: 1 per second. Effect: by allowing the descendant of the monarch of Fangs to inhabit your body, your physique will be enhanced, and your senses will become as sharp as a wild beast. Returning to Brokey, he couldn't understand what the hell was going on. What is this? Is he absorbing the descendant of the monarch of Fangs? The hyena thought as he frantically swung his arms forward, but all his attacks were easily evaded by SuHo as if he were just taking a stroll. This was due to his senses being enhanced to an incredible level. My body feels so light, I can feel my senses becoming sharper, and I can also sense the optimal movements to avoid danger. If it were now, maybe I could defeat him. Like that, SuHo dodged the attacks while slowly getting closer to Brokey, then executed a high kick straight to the monster's chin. This caught it off guard against his newfound power. Brokey screamed internally. What the hell is this? Is this really the little brat from earlier? I can't lose. If I fall here, it will really be the end. The symbol in his eyes began to glow, channeling power for him to deliver a punch strong enough to push SuHo back. His mana increased again, Beru exclaimed in shock. After seeing SuHo push back, Brokey began to regain his confidence. I don't know what tricks you all have pulled, but one thing is certain. I will never be defeated by a lowly human like you. In the end, the power difference originates from the differences between our races. Blame yourself for being born a lowly human. As soon as the words were spoken, the fists of both clashed once again. However, contrary to Brokey's expectations, his fist, after colliding with SuHo's fist, was struck into a fork shape by SuHo. The reason for this was that he had just acquired a new skill. Announcement: you have learned the skill Unarmed Combat Level 1. Skill: Unarmed Combat Level 1, Passive Skill. Mana cost: none. Effect: you become proficient in close combat. Damage dealt will increase by 33% when you attack the opponent with your body. Returning to Beru, upon hearing the hyena's comments, he was also absolutely furious. What? You dare discuss race in front of the young monarch? What creature could possibly stand above the race of the Shadow Monarch? Beru said, causing Brokey's face to turn fearful. Wait, does this mean this child is of the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch? Brokey spoke up before being hit by SuHo, the splitting wood with the leg move, striking straight into his head, causing his entire head to bury deep into the ground. The attack was so powerful that it cracked the ground into many pieces. Finally, after executing the attack, SuHo returned to his normal state, and the little wolf also escaped from his body. Next, it ran over to check on Brokey, who was still mumbling weakly, "Stronger. I must be stronger." Seeing Brokey like that, the little wolf also licked his forehead with its tongue, and at that very moment, the symbol in Brokey's eyes shattered, freeing him from its control. I remember now. The reason I wanted to become stronger. Lord Raken, I was so angry that I couldn't protect you. Brokey thought to himself before his life came to an end. The little wolf saw this and let out a painful howl. But Brokey's life was not wasted, as it became nourishment for SuHo. Notification: you have defeated the hyena Brokey. Notification: you have leveled up. You have leveled up.